At no level of basketball could this ever be a technical foul on Kelsey Mitchell. Oh, Asia Wilson's on the court. That changes everything. So if Asia Wilson fouls you on a layup, you're going to get a technical.
The Las Vegas Aces stepped onto the court ready to celebrate, but what unfolded was a brutal exposure of their dirty playbook, a stark contrast to the MVP trophy raised just hours before tip-off. Their strategy seemed less about basketball and more about flying elbows.
It's supposed to be a night all about Asia Wilson's legacy. She made history before the ball even tipped, but the game that followed reminded the Aces how tough this playoff run will be.
The Indiana Fever have pulled off the upset, the 6th seed, beating Vegas 89-73 to take game.
Dramatic flops and a symphony of swallowed whistles. It was chaos disguised as dominance, designed to rattle Indiana. Yet the Fever didn't just blink, they answered every shove and cheap trick with a defiant grit, relentless pace, and a barrage of counterstrikes. Then Kelsey Mitchell caught fire, burying dagger after dagger, silencing the arena with each jumper. It wasn't just scoring, it was outright payback. This game transcended a simple win. It was about slamming Vegas's arrogance right back at them and unveiling their chaotic tactics, leaving everyone wondering what Kelsey Mitchell truly said after the game about Wilson's relentless antics and the refs.
Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces lose Game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish. There was a small little patch there in the third quarter. We started saying, are the Aces gonna come back? But Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims said, no, they're not going to come back. Not at all.
Hours before the game, all eyes were fixated on Asia Wilson, proudly hoisting her MVP trophy in Vegas. The night was meticulously scripted for celebration, a declaration of their undisputed reign. But by the final horn, that gleaming award looked less like a crown and more like a heavy distraction. What was meant to showcase the Aces' invincibility instead highlighted their unexpected cracks. From the opening quarter, nothing came easy for the reigning champions, and their unraveling began far faster than anyone could have predicted, shifting the entire atmosphere from triumph to tension. This was supposed to be a coronation, but it became a wake-up call.
You just referenced it twice. It is Indiana. Dropped 2 of the 3 games to them this year, but you haven't seen them since late July. What excites you about that matchup?
That they haven't seen the real Aces yet. They caught us when we were a bit in turmoil. Not only that, they whooped us one of those stretches. So, you know what? We'll buckle in, hone in where we can, and take care of business.
But here's the unexpected twist. While Vegas was busy savoring its own hype, Indiana was being completely written off, relegated to a footnote. Analysts didn't discuss them. They merely listed their absence in passing like filler beneath the score. That intentional snub, however, became their ultimate fuel. With no spotlight, there's a liberating absence of weight on your shoulders, allowing a team to just hoop. From the very first possession, that profound lack of expectation morphed into unbridled freedom. The Fever weren't scared, they were unleashed, and that newfound ferocity was stamped across every decisive cut, every crisp pass, and every confident shot on the court. It was as if being ignored had given them an invisible superpower.
The Fever crashed the party. Kelsey Mitchell dropped a playoff career-high 34 points to spoil the night with an 89-73 win.
In the second half, I just felt like our physicality and our pursuit was not there. Like, we died on screens. You have to have second and third efforts. Even if you know you might be beat, you still have to try hard to get back into the play, and I don't think we tried hard in that category.
They didn't just run the floor. They sprinted, keeping the ball humming with an almost frantic energy. They looked undeniably sharper, more cohesive than the so-called untouchable 2-time champions. The Aces, for all their pre-game bravado, came out sluggish, burdened by their own hype. Suddenly, they were the ones hesitating, second-guessing, feeling the immense weight of their own towering expectations. The immense pressure that was supposed to crush the Fever had, with a shocking reversal, flipped directly back onto Vegas. Rings and reputations, it turned out, meant absolutely nothing when the underdog refused to crumble. That's precisely when swagger began to look a whole lot like outright panic. By the final buzzer, every pre-written storyline had been spun dramatically upside down, completely inverting the narrative, delivering a shock right in the Aces' own house.
You better not blank on the mission, bitch. You might get ranked if... Shot back. Let it go. Right, go. What is... Fly, somebody. Die. You don't want to fight no hitter? No. Nigga, I'ma shoot you in the face.
At the swirling center of that unraveling was none other than A'ja Wilson herself. Instead of anchoring her team with refined skill and calculated plays, she set an undeniably aggressive tone with elbows and overt theatrics. She threw forearms discreetly away from the ball, leaned into Fever players with deliberate force after whistles, and initiated shoves during dead transitions when defense wasn't even in active play. But her flops were far more egregious, crashing to the floor like she'd been blindsided, only for slow-motion replays to expose nothing more than the faintest contact. At one shocking point, she brazenly hooked an opponent's arm, deliberately pulled herself to the hardwood, and then sold it like a full-blown crime scene. These weren't displays of dominance. They were raw, desperate panic moves from a star watching control slip violently through her grasp, a painful realization for anyone watching.
Hall was getting pushed all game. Look at that. Like elbowed, pushed, but guess who fell? That's an illegal screen. She leans into Lexi Hall, pushes her. Look at this. Pushes Lexi Hall down. Like, I can't take this crap. I'm sick of watching it over and over. That's a moving screen. And then pushes her again. Look at that. You can't do that. They didn't call any. This is the only one they called a foul. She straight pushed Kelsey Mitchell.
Wilson's teammates quickly mirrored the escalating chaos. Jackie Young began setting screens with the brute force of a linebacker, throwing her hips with extra, deliberate power off ball. Defenders buried their shoulders and elbows into unsuspecting Fever players, all strategically dressed up as legitimate physical basketball. The underlying tactic was transparent: disrupt Indiana's fluid offensive flow and deliberately drag the entire game into a messy defensive slugfest. But the plan catastrophically backfired. Instead of rattling the Fever into submission, the rough, dirty play only stoked their internal fire, transforming every cheap shot into raw, burning motivation. It was a strategy that alienated the crowd and empowered the opposition.
Off with, but ball never lies. I love when karma happens. Yeah, miss your free throw. And then here we go. Check this out. Foul. Look at this. When she swings her elbows on Powers, and Powers just holding her ground, but it's a foul. Let's go through this. This is A'ja Wilson. I'm so big and bad. No, you didn't get touched.
Indiana
It wasn't that
didn't
cool.
just survive the barrage of cheap shots. They flat out thrived on them. Every shove, every hard foul became an injection of pure, unadulterated fuel. Kelsey Mitchell, seeing the game's turning point, demanded the rock with an urgent intensity, drilling pivotal, big-time shots that systematically silenced the once-roaring Vegas crowd. Odyssey Sims blanketed the perimeter like her entire career hinged on every defensive slide, a tenacious, relentless presence. Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner stood firm in the paint, a disciplined, unyielding wall, consciously choosing composure and tactical defense over any form of retaliation. They were proving that true toughness isn't about wildly swinging back, but about holding your ground with unwavering conviction. For a group everyone had dismissed mere hours before tip-off, this unexpected fight didn't shrink them. It sharpened them, transforming them into a formidable, cohesive unit.
Boston swings her elbows around and makes a shot, but no, she can't do it. She's a Fever. An Indiana Fever. She said, that's a flop. That's what Caitlin said. Here we go. A'ja Wilson. Look at her trying to flop to get a call. Nobody touched you. And this is the biggest bullcrap of the game. So Kelsey Mitchell goes in for a layup. A'ja Wilson shows them their lip, so they review it. Ever see an Indiana Fever player get a review when they're called for a foul and they zoom in with a microscope and call it technical?
No one embodied that relentless fight better than Kelsey Mitchell. She didn't merely respond to the Aces' cheap shots, she systematically dismantled them. Her 34-point showcase was a masterclass in poise wrapped in unyielding fire. Every time she got hit, bumped, or barked at, she responded with another bucket, a defiant statement. Vegas tried to disrupt her rhythm with elbows, shoves, and incessant chatter, but Mitchell merely sliced through their defense with fearless drives and ice-cold jumpers, shot after shot. She made it unequivocally clear Vegas could win the scraps, but she was definitively owning the scoreboard. For all the MVP trophies stacked in the Aces cabinet, none of their celebrated stars came even close to matching her sheer brilliance that night. It was Mitchell's game, start to finish, a singular performance that eclipsed all others, leaving the champion stunned.
Wilson, look at that foul they called for. Yeah, saved her. That's some bullcrap. I love Aaliyah Boston. Great job today playing defense. Look at that. Another foul. Bailed out by the refs. I get pissed off. This is the worst one. They call this a jump ball. How is that a jump ball? Nobody even had possession. Aaliyah Boston, that's anything is over the back. Not a jump ball.
Mitchell wasn't the only player shining under the unexpected spotlight. Odyssey Sims looked like she had been patiently waiting her entire career for this exact moment. She attacked the rim with zero hesitation, driving with a ferocity that caught Vegas off guard, and hounded defenders on the perimeter as if her life depended on every single possession. But the truly distinguishing factor was her unwavering control. When Vegas desperately attempted to drag Indiana into their preferred chaos, Sims calmly slowed the tempo, re-establishing a steady rhythm. And when opportune cracks appeared in the Aces' defense, she hit the gas, instantly transforming pressure into critical points. Her composed presence gave the Fever the polished demeanor of a battle-tested playoff squad, while, startlingly, the two-time defending champions were the ones visibly unraveling, looking more rattled with every passing possession.
Hey, Mitch, put him in a ditch! Who on the Las Vegas Aces is going to try to stop Kelsey Mitchell? Because from what I just saw, they had no answer for her. Kirsten Bell, line right up, smacked. Jackie Young, step right up, torched. Chelsea Gray, torched. Jewel Lloyd, torched. Nobody could hang with Kelsey Mitchell as she goes off.
Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner were equally crucial in the brutal trenches, facing off against Wilson and the rest of Vegas's formidable front line. They didn't flinch, holding their ground with unwavering resolve, rotating smartly and transforming every single post touch into a grueling, physical battle. It wasn't about highlight reel swats into the stands or dramatic blocks. It was about systematically stripping Vegas of any comfort or easy access in the paint. The Aces, normally dominant inside, suddenly found themselves slogging through quicksand. Each trip to the paint became an exhausting grind, and the more they forced it, the more their entire offense completely unraveled. Then there was Lexi Hull, who didn't need 30 points to leave an indelible mark. Her primary assignment was Jackie Young, and she transformed it into a defensive clinic. Every jumper Young attempted had a hand aggressively in her face. Every cut was expertly cut off. Every possession became a war of attrition. Hull's plus 24 wasn't just a statistical note, it was living, breathing proof of how suffocating her defense had been. The bruises she absorbed, the shoves she defiantly brushed off, the fearless dives she made, all of it not only uplifted Indiana, but also dramatically muted one of Vegas's most reliable high-scoring stars.
And keeping the pivot foot alive and going strong side for Wilson.
Mitchell this time finds a lane to the basket. Inside to Turner. Nice look from Mitchell, which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of arc on that and a couple of bounces.
Indiana didn't just survive the Aces' blatant attempt to turn the game into a street fight, they actively elevated above it. They absorbed every cheap shot, every intentional shove, every dirty tactic, and remarkably walked away with their composure entirely intact and the hard-earned win decisively secured. But perhaps the most devastating blow wasn't Mitchell's clutch daggers or Sims's unwavering poise. It was Aaliyah Boston's defensive masterpiece directly against the league's freshly crowned MVP. Hours before tip-off, A'ja Wilson had hoisted her trophy amidst a roaring Vegas crowd. Once the ball went up, however, that very crowd seemed to transform into an unbearable burden. Boston met her at every single spot on the court, expertly sealing space, absorbing contact with unyielding strength, and relentlessly forcing ugly, contested looks. Wilson didn't just miss, she visibly labored, managing only 6 makes on a frustrating 22 attempts. That wasn't dominance. That was pure, unshakable frustration personified on the court.
Anticipation there by Brianna Turner. She's been on a couple WNBA all defensive teams, and she has really been key for them on that end of the floor in these playoffs.
Sims, yet again.
That's a tough matchup.
Which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of arc on that and a couple in the regular season in Asia. In the entire league. And Sims, they gave her just that space and she took it.
Even Becky Hammond, typically sharp with her tactical counters, looked visibly shaken and uncharacteristically devoid of answers. Rather than generously credit Indiana's precision and disciplined play, she dismissively waved off the loss as mere missed opportunities. But the undeniable truth was far more potent. Boston had flat-out dismantled her MVP, and Hammond's stubborn refusal to admit it only served to magnify just how thoroughly the Fever had exposed the reigning champions. The irony couldn't have been scripted with more dramatic precision. Wilson, having lifted the league's highest individual honor mere hours earlier, was then profoundly humbled on her own home floor. That night, as she walked off, the arena didn't echo with triumphant MVP cheers. Instead, it reverberated with Indiana's joyous, unexpected celebration. Inside the Fever locker room, the mood was electric. This wasn't merely a win, it was a complete takeover of the story itself. And when Kelsey Mitchell finally spoke, bruised but utterly unshaken, her words perfectly captured it all: the relentless fight, the burning fire, and the undeniable proof that Indiana not only belonged, but was ready to disrupt everything.
Tipped by Sims, so 9 seconds to shoot.
Hull's done a nice job on Jackie Young early in this game. Jackie likes to go north to south. She's made her play east to west, has not given her an angle to the bucket or to the rim.
And that was one of the things that was talked about, to make Jackie move laterally. She's so dangerous. We gotta hurry. Kelsey gets it inside to Young. Rebound by Howard.
Just one game in, and the statistical indicators already heavily favor Indiana in best-of-5 series. A staggering 72% of teams that secure Game 1 ultimately go on to advance. While it's certainly not a guaranteed promise, it provides a powerful blueprint, and right now, the Fever are executing it flawlessly. For Vegas, the sting of this loss was undeniably brutal. They entered the series riding a dominant wave of 18 wins in their last 19 outings, brimming with overwhelming momentum, characteristic swagger, and the critical advantage of home court. Yet all of that meticulously built confidence unraveled in a single shocking night. Their MVP was completely neutralized. Their usually potent offense sputtered inefficiently, and the aura of untouchability they had carried into the series simply vanished into thin air.
I want to talk about it. Yeah, her missing layup after layup after layup. They want to talk about Caitlin Clark missing a three-pointer from half court while she got people falling into her legs. But nobody wants to talk about A'ja Wilson looking like Angel Reese, missing point-blank layups all game long.
Now the Aces find themselves staring down Game 2, acutely aware that another slip at home could spell absolute disaster. Heading to Indianapolis with the very real threat of elimination looming over them, tactical adjustments are not just inevitable, they are absolutely essential. Expect them to aggressively hound Mitchell, perhaps even assigning Jackie Young to her shoulder, to deny any rhythm. They'll undoubtedly look to get Wilson deeper touches, desperately attempting to slow the game's tempo and meticulously test Indiana's patience with every single possession. Experience is certainly their most significant card to play, but crucially, the crushing weight of expectation no longer rests on Indiana. It has, with a dramatic shift, completely transferred to Vegas. The Fever are playing freely, with nothing to lose, and frankly, Indiana doesn't resemble a team merely trying to hang on. They look like a group fully prepared to seize the stage and completely flip the league's entire storyline on its head.
I'll have that great steal to seal the win against Atlanta. Great start for Leah Boston.
Definitely the slasher.
Boston and Wilson, two former South Carolina players. Asia can't find the bottom of the net.
5'11". Odyssey sends in Kelsey Mitchell, 5'8".
Boston up, under, and in.
Really having her battle.
Asia.
One of the most insidious aspects of the Aces' dirty playbook was the unsettling silence from the referees. There were noticeable absences of whistles, particularly for Vegas's escalating aggression, the subtle forearms, the deliberate shoves away from the ball, the over-the-top flops. Many of these went uncalled, creating an unspoken narrative that tacitly endorsed the rough play. This perceived leniency from the officials only fueled the accusations of biased officiating, further contributing to the feeling that Indiana was not just battling the Aces, but also an uneven playing field. This lack of intervention allowed the chaos to fester, shaping the game's brutal character.
Going into this one, the Aces had only lost twice in 50 days, Kelsey. So what did you guys make of all the chatter going into this series that they were the favorites?
You kind of just respect their game. They have the best player in the world on their team. They have unbelievable guards, so you have to respect who they are. Unbelievable PG, and so you know what they bring to the table as far as their resume and everything they've done throughout the course of the season. And you have to respect that. And you just hope that, 50-50, follow a certain way, and you like to think that, your effort and your ability to show up and just compete can, make you have a win.
Vegas clearly intended their physical approach as psychological warfare, designed to break Indiana's spirit and make them question every move. They wanted to inject fear and frustration, turning the game into an ugly brawl where finesse would be abandoned. Yet, instead of achieving their desired effect, this intimidation tactic backfired spectacularly. Every hard foul, every provocative comment, every uncalled shove, rather than rattling the Fever, galvanized their collective spirit. It forged a deeper bond, a shared indignation that manifested in their relentless effort and unyielding composure. The Aces tried to scare them, but they only succeeded in making Indiana stronger, uniting them against a common aggressive adversary.
We've got to keep the main thing, and that is us playing to a standard of basketball that we want to have as an Indiana Fever organization and franchise. We've got to keep our layers, the outside, the people in our building, and the people in our locker room. And the thing I'm just so proud of with this group is it doesn't matter who's on the floor, it doesn't matter who's on our roster. They give each other the freedom to be themselves. They empower one another to be themselves and to be the best version of themselves. And every time we've had a change, every time we've brought someone in, every time we've had rotational changes, they're for each other. They live the we over the me. And when you have that, it just gives you opportunities to do really special things.
The immense weight of their own expectations ultimately became the Aces' most formidable opponent. Crowned as untouchable, with a new MVP and a dynasty in the making, Vegas entered the game suffocated by the very hype they had cultivated. This pressure meant every mistake was magnified. Every missed shot became a deeper crack in their invincible facade. They were playing not just against Indiana, but against the narrative of their own dominance. When the game didn't go according to script, this self-imposed pressure morphed into frantic desperation, causing their usually disciplined play to unravel. The burden of being the league's celebrated powerhouse proved heavier than any defense Indiana could muster.
About the performance, the urgency, and the response you had when they made a couple runs late.
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, our group has seen it all. We wanted to come in and be the aggressor right away to make sure that we were dictating on the defensive end, and we were dictating from a pace standpoint. They're champions for a reason. We knew that they were going to make runs. They made a big one in the third, and we responded with a big one. I'm proud of our team. It's one game. It's a long series, so we got to keep the main thing. But to come in here and to be able to steal this one was big for us.
Despite a roster gutted by injuries and key players sidelined, Indiana's depth proved to be a quiet revelation. While the spotlight focused on the absence of Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Sydney Colson, lesser-known players stepped up and filled those voids with surprising effectiveness. This wasn't a team reliant on one or two stars. It was a cohesive unit where every player, regardless of their usual role, understood their assignment and executed it with fierce determination. Their collective effort exposed the myth that the Aces could only be challenged by another full-strength super team. Indiana's no-name heroes became the unheralded engine of their astonishing upset. This shocking defeat didn't just mark a loss for the Aces, it raised profound questions about their championship pedigree. The seemingly invincible facade they had painstakingly built over 2 dominant seasons began to show significant cracks. A team celebrated for its poise, precision, and ability to close out games under pressure instead devolved into a desperate, undisciplined mess. This uncharacteristic unraveling suggested that their dynasty, once considered a certainty, might be more fragile than anyone had imagined. The aura of untouchability had vanished, leaving doubts about their resilience when faced with an opponent who refused to be intimidated. The game wasn't just a gradual decline for Vegas, there were distinct turning point moments that solidified Indiana's control and marked the Aces' descent into chaos. One such moment was early in the third quarter, when, after another uncalled foul, Kelsey Mitchell drilled a deep three-pointer right in the face of a frustrated A'ja Wilson. It was a clear message: your physicality won't stop me. Another came when Aliyah Boston calmly hit back-to-back contested shots over Wilson, directly countering Vegas's attempts to dominate the paint. These weren't isolated plays, they were symbolic flashpoints that demonstrably shifted momentum, visibly stripping the Aces of their composure and handing confidence, almost tangibly, to the Fever. One game in, and the symbolism of the night couldn't have been louder. On the very day A'ja Wilson was celebrated as the league's face, she was humbled in front of her own crowd. And at the same time, Indiana, a team written off all year, captured its first semifinal win in over a decade. This wasn't just an upset, it felt like a torch being dramatically passed. The Fever didn't just steal a win, they ripped away the Aces' swagger, their cherished home court edge, and the very aura of untouchability they carried into the series. The question isn't whether Indiana belongs anymore. It's whether Vegas, the supposed champions, have the emotional and tactical resilience left to claw their way back, or if this unexpected triumph marks the beginning of a profound changing of the guard in the league.